Hello there. It is 6:05 p.m., May 31st, Saturday evening, and I'm just kind of hanging out at my house. For a few minutes, I had to just kind of rest and kind of, get my breath and start, thinking about, changing modes. I'm kind of bored right now. I've been working on my project all day long, adding to the content, and then I've narrated earlier this morning. So I'm just kind of worn out, and of course, a lot of thoughts are going through my head because, I've often wondered, like, I was thinking about throughout my life how I dealt with, people kind of seeing me in ways that kind of I thought was kind of surprising. Like, I remember I had mentioned that before I realized that I was a clone and all that nonsense. I mean, it's neat, it's a cool story, but at the same time, it's just like there gets to be a time where I start getting like really drained by thinking about it because everything that's associated with the whole cloning process, that's the whole fake family thing. It's the people who you look at these people and they're like willing to betray you. Like I think about the betrayal of my adoptive family. How is it that you could raise somebody, hang out with them, spend time with them, laugh, talk, and all this stuff, and just completely flip out and do something completely different? And I realized, mind control, brainwashing, and people's self hatred is what really fuels these sort of things. And it to me, like, sometimes I honestly don't like thinking a lot nowadays. And the only thing that could either cheer me up is my own projects. And it literally made me feel like I just lost faith in people. Like, this just disgusting. Like, how is it that you didn't have the common sense to know, and I'm referring to my adoptive family. How is it that you didn't have the common sense to know that there was something very, very wicked? But I also understand, because of their self hatred, what they wanted me to do is they wanted me to not be successful so that I could somehow make them feel better about themselves. Okay. Now, when I look at success, I'll tell you what success is to me. Success is keeping your lights on consistently, meaning when you get your PG&E bill, there is no past due balance, meaning that it's paid in full. Okay, I don't see myself, I've never saw myself driving around in limousines or anything like that. I've always had, I would say, humble beginnings. But the thing is, most everybody deserves to have some sort of reputation, meaning that people should see me how I want them to see me, instead of people painting an image of me for everyone to judge. And unfortunately, by being a clone, the churches, I don't know. See, like I said, when we talk about the whole Rex Laverne thing, and I haven't done any, like, in depth meditations on it or not. Like, I understand Rex Laverne went wacko. Okay, I get it. Okay, but I do understand that the churches were behind this, and they also violated, I would say, my trust, because I understand that each denomination was supposed to be very distinct in behavior, doctrines, tenets, even afterlife ideas, and what we agreed on. So this blows me away. It's like these people have been collaborating for a very long time. For that issue, I have a problem with it because, like I said, a lot of these religions were talking about being the truth, okay? And that's what bothers me, okay? It bothers me because we have all these different, and people have argued about it. I remember, hearing, like my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law didn't like Catholics because he didn't like the fact that they found significance in Mary, but yet these people were all collaborating. It's just like mind blowing to me, okay? It's mind blowing. And, but anyway, um, I have never had people ever judge me based on just a conversation that I could have with them myself. It's always been based on, okay, this woman was, when I was dead, I guess, back in the 1960s, I realized that my apparition was shown, or following around my father or whatever. But no, we are of God. We are of God. And see, everybody's going to have their own interpretation of what God is. Okay, like, I don't really believe that whatever Rex Laverne was praying to, that is not any sort of reflection of me. I'm going to tell you, I would never be weird like that. There's nothing crazy about my view of God. Okay, I'm completely grounded. Everything that I say makes sense, and I don't have any malicious intent. Okay, and I am not trying to compete with other people. I want to see people content, because when people are content, they don't have the need to lash out and be discontent. You know what I mean? And so this is one of the reasons why I was talking about, the danger of self-hatred. And yes, some people do struggle with jealousy, okay? And when we look at jealousy, we have to understand, I'm going to tell you, there's some people that I have heard, are jealous of me. Like my siblings must have been jealous of me. Rex Laverne was obviously jealous of me. And I want to tell you, nobody in this life gets it easy, okay? So even if you think that I'm somebody who has everything, which I don't, okay? Like, they repossessed my car, okay? They ruined my credit, and hopefully everything is good. Like I said, I need an actual copy of it, okay? But just because you might be perceived as great does not mean that you're not going to have any heartache in this world, okay? Like, I have dealt with heartache. I've dealt with family betrayals. Sick, deep, deep family betrayals. I've dealt with religious people persecuting me. I was denied a childhood because of the foolishness of these people. Okay, this is one of the reasons why, and it's this sick, like, circular argument that it was. This is how demonic this stuff is. Okay, I was a very loving type kid. You know what I mean? All I really wanted to do was have a couple of playmates, people that I enjoyed. I was always very sincere with all my childhood friends. Okay, all of my childhood friends, I was very sincere with. If you ask me or mention one of their names, I could tell you their birthdays. Okay, that's how good of a friend I was. That is not a kid. That's not a joke. Okay, because you know what? There's something about me that has the ability to love, unlike most people. This is one of the reasons why, my sisters and my brothers and sisters used to laugh at me when I would cry over stuff like Snoopy Come Home, because I have compassion. I have compassion, right? And that is very rare, because a lot of people, they'll see bad things happen to people and they get excited, they enjoy it, okay, because there's something very triggered off with these people, because they do not have any self-love, any self-respect, and nor do they have any idea what they're doing is wrong. Okay, so yes, I believe in my lifestyle, and I feel very unhappy that we had these people who are trying to trivialize it. That's my choice. You know what I mean? And I understand the issue is over, okay? But you know what? You know how scary it is and terrifying for people to back you against the wall in the United States of America? That is very terrifying, okay? It is terrorism, because, that's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be. It's like, I should be able to stroll down the street, and if somebody doesn't like, there's some women, they don't like any extra. They don't like extra. They don't like hair extensions. They don't like makeup. They don't like any of that sort of stuff. Just because that's who they are. Okay, but they don't have the right to prevent other people from doing it. You know what I mean? I know some women who to me, I wouldn't want to be anything like them. Like, like I'm not what do you call it? I'm not like a tough type woman. Okay. Some people think that I am, but there's some women that I admire that I'm not ever going to be myself. Like those really tough women that know how to get into trucks or cars, and they can, repair them and everything like that, which I admire. Right. But do I want to learn how to do all that myself? No, I'm going to be honest. I don't. But am I always blown away when I see somebody like that? Yes, I am. Okay. There are some people who it's not, if they choose not to do it, then they feel like everybody else is not supposed to do it. And this is not right. Okay, I have a life of my own, and I resent other people trying to prevent me from living my life. Okay, my life, is, especially the way that I look at it now. Okay, apparently, I've been back several times, in one form or another through the cloning process. And, my feeling about it is I do feel violated. Okay, I do feel violated. And I think one of the reasons why, I'm making the moral reset is because, I don't want to come back. I don't want to come back. I don't. I don't have a desire to come back. I feel as though I have dealt with so much evil. I have dealt with so much evil, okay, that, I really don't. I have no desire to do so, okay? But I do believe that, the things need to be straightened out, okay? And how things progress, after I grow old and die, that's beyond my control. Okay, hopefully, the moral reset might help put things in order, because people do not know. They do not understand what is right and what is wrong according to what the laws of where they're supposed to live or whatever. So, I'm creating that, and that's my little thing. And then I'll do some other projects. You know what I mean? And this is what keeps me going. Okay, everything on the outside world has done absolutely nothing for me. Okay, and I think some people looked at me as a rebel, like I was rebelling. Okay, I am not rebelling against anything. I am well within my right to reject religion. I am well within my right to reject religion, but I think there were people who have been around religion for all their lives. They're used to dealing with the manipulation. They're used to being bullied. Their family, they have a long history of being bullied. They have, whatever. And so they look at me and they're like, and they may even feel a little resentful because I am such a free person and I don't even try to hide it. Okay. The thing is like, I refuse to let somebody abuse me that way, and I'm aware of the abuse. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I was addressing Donald Trump in this whole issue, and I do know that I do get the intuitive message that it is a very well known issue. Okay, a lot was hidden from me. This goes with the reels that I get I sense that are going on like reels on email front pages, as well as like things like Facebook and stuff like that. I have not seen them, and I understand they do a lot of work to try to keep this all covert. But the thing is, I'm aware. I am aware that this has been going on, and I feel angry towards Rex Laverne because to me, if he believed that I was the Messiah, okay, and he treated me in the way that he did and disrespected me and wanted to prevent the world from knowing who I am, okay, then what does that make him in any religious text? Why would you go up against somebody that you believed, just so that your side could win? Okay. That seems weird to me. Okay. And, I'm going to let you know right now, I don't let this whole thing about the Messiah thing go to my head. Okay. And the reason why is because when people have spiritual gifts, it is very important that we always acknowledge that I would not have any spiritual gifts if there was nothing higher than me. Okay, there's like this story in the Bible, and I quote the Bible, and the reason why I look at the Bible for certain things is because these certain stories or accounts, I guess you could call them, are meant to kind of explain my situation. Okay, so like we had Moses, who when he was with, I believe, his brother Aaron, and they struck the rock and the water came out. Okay, and then Aaron forgot to thank God. He was basically saying, "Oh yeah, thank." He was letting people give him the accolades. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is, I am a vessel for the Most High, is what I am. Okay, and I believe that, and apparently a lot of other people believe that, and I have always had a connection with God since I was a child. Okay, and it will always be that way. Rex Laverne was a very evil man. Okay, we don't. Let me tell you something. When it comes to God, it is not a competition. Do not play competition games with anything that relates to God. If you are content praying in your home, or you're content in your church, you enjoy your church services, you enjoy your group prayers, you enjoy those sort of things, do not sit here and play the us versus them game. Okay, just don't. Okay, because that's the worst kind of energy that you can put on the earth. I do understand that the police department knows about this. I've gotten this message before. The police department know who I am. And when it comes to the whole, I deal with emotional, mental problems because I look at it as me being attacked by the Ku Klux Klan. That to me, going to places like the welfare office or having a phone call with the EDD, it's almost like a black person from the old days in the South worrying about opening the door in the middle of the night and seeing a cross being burned on their yard. That's exactly how I feel, and that's exactly how I take it. I do not like communicating with these people. And I understand, I get the feeling that there were a lot of, accommodating people. I didn't deal with any harassment from any of these people, but I have in the past. Repeatedly, okay? Repeatedly. And because it was repeatedly, it makes me feel like reluctant to do it again. To have any conversation. Yes, I think what Rex Laverne resented was because he never saw a woman who, was comfortable in her own skin. Meaning, like, I'm a woman who believes in clothes. And I believe perhaps maybe his religious belief system, because they were very into, populating the earth. Women were basically used as breeders. And, I am in no way trying to say that there's nothing good about a family. I honestly have family values. I truly do. Okay. I truly have family values. Okay. I believe that when a woman is a mother, that should be her first thing that she cares about. Her kids, okay? And I believe that she should be raising her kids to be healthy in mind, body, and spirit. I believe that family units, like, I think it's a shame when you see families that have like brothers and sisters that are scattered all over the place, and people haven't communicated in years and that sort. And unfortunately, I come from one of those broken homes. Okay, but I understand, like, if things would have turned out differently for me, I would have been a good, I had, if I had more than one child. Okay, I would have been, a great mother to like a daughter or whatever. And if I would have had a family structure, yeah, of course, I would have moved in. We would have been like the little pillow, you would call the potato races in the back. Yes, I would have had that crap. Okay, I would, because I believe in the power of togetherness. You know what I mean? And I would have raised my family to believe in the strength of our family, and we would have purpose. Okay, it wouldn't be, I'm just using somebody, I'm exploiting you for what you can get from me. I've been there, done that. My family exploited me basically, because, like I said, if it wasn't for me, they probably would not have had anything. So, I was used a lot in my life. So I know not to use other people, because I know that it's painful. Okay. And I don't believe that it's a good foundation to start anything off of. So I do. I resent, people making decisions about my life. And I also resent people trying to, like, shove things down my throat. I'm an experimenter. You know what I mean? I'm somebody yeah, I am an experimenter. I am somebody who is very innovative, and I like to develop my own ideas, and I like to live out my own ideas to confirm whether these things are good or not. And yeah, it's a trial and error. There's things I've done that were made, I made mistakes. Okay, but I try to keep my thought process as pure as I possibly can. I don't like being influenced. I don't like being influenced. Okay, it has nothing to do with, me being rebellious. What it is I am a 100%, I mean, walking, talking researcher, and this is what I'm into. I am dead serious. I am dead serious into social science type research, this kind of behavioral type research. I get off on it. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I build my life based on what have I studied. And if I feel as though something is not strong in this area, I'm going to shift it. And it's all based on me. So I resent it when people are like, oh, I want you to do this, or how can you can't try this, or I need to do, I want, they want me to move into a different direction. Okay, and maybe those directions are good for other people, but I am a researcher who takes my work very seriously. I am somebody who is trying to demonstrate, how important it is to be authentic. I believe in the authentic self. Okay, I believe in the authentic self. Now, I cannot say the authentic self is good for everybody else, but for me, it seems to work wonders. Okay, and I have the right to walk and talk and live my authentic self, and I resent people from trying to prevent me from doing that. Because my authentic self, I'm at peace. I don't sit here and project my crap on other people. Okay, what else do I want to say? Oh, I am excited about showing people my brochure. I am so excited about my brochures. I created those just recently. I'm almost done with the logo, because, like, I've been thinking, okay, I'm trying to merge the Swan Song Manifesto with the Gordon's occupational engineering. Okay, because I think it's important that people understand this is my last career. Okay, this is my last track on life. I am not coming back. Okay, so my work is not, how can I say this? I want to have the best time I can. I want to create the best changes I possibly can, and I want to improve the work life. Okay. Thus, if you can correct the work life, then you can correct the rest of your life. Because I would say the work life is what eats people up the most. I think. Okay. But I'm interested in doing experimental stuff, and if people are willing to jump on board with my experimental stuff, then that's even better. Okay. So I'm basically briefly touching on that. I am talking a little bit about human trafficking in my brochure. And I have to do all this stuff on my own. So, I'm always having to do everything on my own, because I never had a solid foundation. And because I never had a solid foundation, I understand the importance of it. I do. I understand the value of family. Unfortunately, my family's pieces of shit, right? Anyway, what else? I do get the feeling that their issue has been resolved and distributed across the land, meaning across the United States. Thank you, Donald Trump. Anyway, and a lot of people are talking a lot about aliens. Yeah, I understand. It was in people's best interest to keep our origins hidden. Okay, it really was. It was in their best interest. Okay, but that doesn't mean that there is not something divine. Okay, and this is what I'm saying is important. This is what's important. Okay. And so this is one of the reasons why I don't think it's necessary to end your church membership. I'm just saying, churches, you need to go into a different direction. Instead of doing hate group activities like, abusing other people, blocking them, and preventing them to have rights, maybe you guys can do something a little bit more, productive. Get more involved in spiritual activities, or talk more about certain skills that you guys have, that can build in your environment. Like, I know this sounds really old fashioned, right? But I personally think it's cool when women have like this gift of, uh, being able to make their homes beautified. Meaning, like, they can work with, they can make those like arts and crafts and stuff like that to make their home peaceful and to have a good feel for their entire family. Creating a nice environment that is pleasant, clean, well decorate decorated with very little money. What I mean? I've seen some really cool, what do you call it, Dollar Tree type decor, that people do on videos and stuff like that, that can brighten up your home. You know what I mean? Especially if you have like, you're into your family or whatever. Yeah, I did talk about, creating networks that for other women who care about their life. Okay. And what I'm saying is that, I refused for people to sit here and try to shame me or try to make me feel like, I'm doing something wrong because I choose to match my clothes. Or, I'm doing something wrong because, I choose to wear, wigs or whatever. Or I'm doing something wrong. I have every right to. You know what I mean? And it's the one, these are the few things that bring me any joy in life, okay? So if somebody is trying to steal your joy, what the hell are you trying to do? You know what I mean? It's like I really resent people who want to impose their views on you by taking away things that bring you pleasure. And so my question to them is, what do you have to replace it? What do you have to replace it? Okay. Obviously, I'm going to tell you right now, there is nothing more important than my life views, than my drive, than my, and all of this goes together. I'm a whole package deal. I'm all into clothes, makeup, jewelry, art, poetry, music, blah 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 blah. That is everything that I find gives me joy. Okay. Dealing with religion and getting into the idea mindset of what other people are going to tell me to do, I'm sorry, that's just not my job. You know what I mean? And like I said, if it belongs to other people to do that, then by all means go do it. You know what I mean? But I personally think that the way that the world has been operating, unfortunately, sadly, here in the United States, with the underground people network, Christian network, that people were really on board and excited to jump on, has brought people nothing but unhappiness. It's brought people nothing but unhappiness. Okay, and so a lot of people wanted to project that unhappiness onto me. Like I said, a lot of women were trying to bully me. And um, I think a lot of times when people see women who take care of themselves, like Rex Laverne, he honestly thought that I was trying to be in a competition. Okay, no. When I'm dressed up, I feel happier. I feel happier. Okay. And also, I really enjoy looking at different patterns, textiles, materials, and stuff like that. So he was projecting what he would do. He was projecting what he would do. Okay. Because some people, they wouldn't put on anything nice. Okay. Unless, of course, they were trying to do it for means of competition. For me, it's like, oh wow, I love this outfit, or look at these little birds on here, I want to wear that, or I don't have a garden outside, but I can wear this shirt with a bunch of like roses on it. I'm creative that way, you know what I mean? And this is my world, and it's the only world that I ever want to live in. I will tell you, that kind of world that they were trying to force me into was something I wouldn't want to be a part of. So yeah, this is what I'm into. I'm into my research. I'm into experimental lifestyles, experimental, what do you call it? I'm a social scientist basically. And it's funny because I wear many hats. Like, I know I usually work like in accounting, but I would consider myself a social scientist, mainly because I understand things like psychology, and then I also understand the implications of people's behavior on this, in society. So yeah, I would say, yeah, I guess you could call me a social scientist. Anyway, what else do I want to talk about? Okay. So yeah, I was thinking about my apparition from the 1960s, and I love the 1960s time period. I love the clothes. I love the music. I love the British invasion. I love George Harrison. I always will. Okay. And I honestly must have seen these people and felt these people. I told you the story about me looking in on my parents at this particular angle, hearing my mom talk about a draft, shut the window, Sid, because there's a draft coming in, and she didn't want spirits to come in. I was probably the spirit that she didn't want to come in. But yes, I mean, yeah, I was probably around my family in the 1960s. This is one of the reasons why that might be my favorite time period. What else? Well, my favorite time period. What would you call it? Yeah, in the 1900s, from the 1900s. Okay, I would say I like the 1800s too. I've always liked the 1800s, like the clothing. Yeah, I've always liked that kind of stuff too. Anyway, I understand that I'm accepted as a single woman, and I understand that people know that I have this huge crush on Elon Musk. Okay, and like I said, whatever happens with Elon Musk happens with Elon Musk. But see, I just I'll let that unfold however it unfolds. Okay, I'm not putting any pressure on him. He's not putting any pressure on me. We're just kind of chilling, and that's fine right now. But yeah, I do like him, and I don't see. I don't like how other people like kind of intertwine that, or try to. I don't know. I'm just whatever. You know what I mean? He's cute though. He's very cute. Anyway, I'm recognized as an autodidact, and I think when I was younger, I understand that was like my father was an autodidact as well, and I understand that I was bullied out of the school system. I think that's important to say. Yeah, I was bullied out of the school system pretty much by the same people who bullied me in the workplace. So this is one of the reasons why I'm talking about online bullying. I'm talking about that in the moral reset. Talking about my first video is talking about the difference between rudeness and harassment, right? And then when I realized you can't overlook that subject when it comes to things like human trafficking, because when you're a victim of human trafficking, pretty much regardless of what kind of trafficking you're stuck in, whether that be labor trafficking, sex trafficking, even child trafficking, the perps or the traffickers pretty much use the same tactics. Okay, and the tactics that they use are things like messing with your social media, and blacklisting you. Blacklisting. That was one thing I was talking about in my video, narrating my script about blacklisting, talking about, they will blacklist you in your community. You know what I mean? And sometimes parents do that to their adult children because they may be relying on their children's income. And that should be a consent between that child, that grown child, and that parent, okay? Because anytime somebody is trying to force you to work only for them, to support them, and make sure that you're basically being reduced to a slave. So I'm talking about human trafficking in all forms. Okay, so yeah, what was I saying? I guess I'll change the subject. But yeah, I'm an autodidact, and the point is that childhood bullies can grow into your adult bullies. Okay, and they will use social media to do it. And a lot of times you might have a teenage daughter right now, or a teenage son or whatever, who might be like 17 years old. And, the way people have things are now, they may have him blacklisted before he goes to college, before he graduates from college, or whatever. So we need to nip human trafficking in the bud, because people think it's funny to wipe out people's lives, their opportunities. This is very serious, okay? Imagine you have a child, because right now I remember, like, this is the month of May, right? And I missed the prom. I never got to go to the prom, but I was walking home a couple days ago, and what came in my mind? I kept thinking, oh, this is a season. I can't wait to see some of these girls. Hopefully I'll be able to catch some of these girls wearing their prom gowns and stuff like that. Okay. And some of these girls could be going out of the world, going to college, spending all this money and time and money going to college, only so they can sit here and not have a job because somebody's already been messing with them. Okay? Yeah, blacklisting through things like, cyber harassment, spreading your name all over the place, getting you blacklisted, and all this sort of stuff. It's running rapid, okay? So we need to fix it. Otherwise, your children won't have any future. There's no checks and balances that need to be in place, okay? And hopefully, that, law enforcement is going to be having things like, special departments in each community to investigate, things that go on that's a little bit funny, okay? Hopefully, okay? And like I said, I don't know anything about really, I'm not really familiar with how technology works. I sound like an idiot trying to describe it, okay? But there's got to be a way to trace these sort of things and get people, make people pay the consequences for what they're doing. Now, when the reason why I'm mentioning these things because and telling people that they're the law is because even if you don't persecute that person, maybe you yourself might be participating in it. Okay, so I'm telling you, if you understand what the end result of you messing around with people's reputation through blacklisting, especially interstate commerce type of uh, blacklisting, okay, if you do this, okay, and you understand that this is going to make it so that this person is going to end up having to die out in the street, why would you do it? I'm just going to ask these people right now. I'm talking about, employment agencies, managers, business owners. Why would you do it? Okay. So if you do continue to do it, then we know that you're evil. Okay. And if you didn't know, then maybe you should have known. Okay. Obviously, if you're going to be in that sort of position, you really need to know. Okay. And this is what I've been trying to say for a very long time on my videos, and nobody was listening to me. See, and the reason why they weren't listening to me is because a lot of people have their own agenda. Okay, they wanted me to shut up. They did not like me. My family probably wanted me dead. You know what I mean? And so, and this is how sick and pathological, this sort of religious thinking can get. So my sister is basically going to be bending over backwards to accommodate the Nazi agenda, and it's crazy. So this is one of the reasons why it's very important that people understand the origins and understand why they believe in what they believe in. See, I understand, like, I would ask certain Christian people, like, okay, well, explain me. They'll say, oh, yeah, I trust in Jesus. I trust in Jesus. Okay, tell me why Jesus would come to earth and what exactly is the purpose of Jesus, right? I mean, I understand, right? And he's supposed to be the Messiah, blah, 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 right? But a lot of people cannot articulate exactly why they belong in these religions or what the religion's about, the foundation, or anything like that. Okay, so my point is, then why are they joining it? And a lot of it may have something to do with them being manipulated and coerced into it, as well as things like tradition, you know what I mean? And like I said, there's nothing wrong with religion if you keep it in the proper perspective. But if you think that you can, like, enforce religion or force that on somebody else, that's where we have a problem. Let me see if there's something else I want to say. Okay. Yeah. When it comes to, I think a lot of people understand that, my son is my family. We're a very small family. I've pretty much been on the run from this sort of abuse for a very long time. And, in the last few years, I found out what was going on. And it bothers me, it disturbs me when I think about, how the anger that was directed towards me, and these death wishes that were directed towards me. And I think about, all this time I kept thinking, what in the world's going on? Why would somebody do this? You know what I mean? But what bothers me the most and what freaks me out the most and disturbs me is that these people knew what my origins were, right? I'm sure Rex Laverne knew I was a clone, right? But he was sitting, and then he had all these people treating me like as if, I did something on purpose. You know what I mean? So it's like these people, they create these clones and then they come back and they just want to bully them. And then they want to, blame other people and all this other. It's absolutely sickening. When I think about things like demonic energies, like archons and stuff like that, it's got archons written all over it. It's got archons written all over it. Okay. And and I try not to talk too much about the spiritual stuff because, I personally think, in my experience with dealing with what I'm going to call like religious, like, okay, people like Rex Laverne, okay, I don't like to mix anything religious into my professional life. I try not to do that, okay? But on my videos, I guess I can talk about anything, right? But yeah, when I think a lot of mental problems are or demonic or spiritual things manifest as what they call mental problems. You know what I mean? Through like what we can refer to as mental issues, mental behavioral problems, psychological problems in the medical world. But I also look at things from the spiritual side, and yeah, that's just how I look at it. Okay. People know that I'm not in this program anymore. I do not want anything to do with Rex Laverne's. I know Rex Laverne's dead, but I just want to move on. Okay. I as I was narrating some of my stuff today about the cycle of human trafficking, it is so disturbing to have to go into want to start all over again, and then you find out you're in the same network. It used to just like really bother me. You know what I mean? Because these people were bullying me constantly. They wanted me to, lose my life. They wanted me to, be unhappy as they were. And I reject the religion. I would reject it 100%. And I'm angry that people could not. And see, the thing is that most people, like I said, they have no moral compass. They don't have any moral compass. They would know if their church was, being deceitful or not. So they would just follow along with it. See, and I understand how dangerous that is. I believe in knowing what it is that you belong to. Anything else? I am doing the best I can when it comes to my projects. I know like I said, I wish I would have had it done in May, but it's almost like I'm trying to cover every single situation, which I know that's not possible, but things doing brain dumps. Okay. Right now, I still want to write some scripts for parental roles, which I got some of that already. I also need to finish my school thinking, like I'm talking about the kind of schools, talking about the different forms of education lightly. Okay. And the reason why I'm talking about education in this particular, or school systems in this particular moral reset, is because I personally think when people are looking for teachers to teach their children, they want to make sure that they have decent teachers and teachers that really care about their profession, instead of people who are just sitting around and just collecting a paycheck. And then also you want to make sure that the teacher has high standards, because this really is, they are spending time with your children for quite a long time, and so you want to make sure that they learned from a good leader. Anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up, because I just want to do a few other things. But yeah, I need things to start moving. I need to get out of the house. This has been a nightmare for me. It's been, I don't appreciate people trying to restrict my movement. They've obviously affected my income. Like I get so angry when I think of, Rex Laverne thinking that it's okay for him to do what he did, and no compensation. I get no compensation. No compensation. And from what I understand, just dealing with like me having to go to these different agencies asking for a handout, which I don't like to do. I feel as though he was probably trying to block me from getting that at one point. You know what I mean? This is why I feel as though these people are evil. Okay, you're going to sit here and mess with my Patreon money, thinking that you're righteous, you can take it, and then you want to basically leave me. I personally have something to do with my brother-in-law, Jeff Hughes. I do not believe that he had any respect for me. I know when I used to see Jeff Hughes, he would sit there and roll his eyes and stuff like that. I don't think he ever really liked me. He was always kind of two-faced or whatever, and it is what it is, okay? But one thing I want to tell you is, when I think of family dynamics and being in a family, this is not the kind of family that a person should have, okay? People should not disrespect their family members, okay? It's important you don't disrespect your family, and it's really important for the head of the household to not disrespect their family members, meaning like, maybe a parent might put their kid down in front of people on the outside, okay? What you're doing is you're setting the tone. You're setting the tone. And I talked about setting the tone before, about the disrespect that people start to receive based off of what some leader basically created and started. It's important to keep your family's name on the up and up. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, unfortunately, I never had that, but I certainly know how to keep that, keep my family's name respectful. Okay, now I'm going to wrap this video up, and I will be back with another video sometime later. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.